Hello everyone, I'm glad to see you on my channel. Please support it with likes, subscriptions, and comments. It may be a small effort for you, but it motivates me to create new videos. I hope you all enjoy this true story. Your support means a lot to me. I married young and had a baby, wanting to leave my parents' home as soon as possible. Life there was far from easy. Constant quarrels, restrictions, and lack of freedom drove me to despair and forced me to start a new life. For 7 years, I devoted myself to my family, but I wanted something more. I wanted to work, but my husband was not enthusiastic about it. He thought we had everything we needed, and in some ways he was right. Still, I was tired of sitting at home all these years. I wanted to evolve, to be more than just a wife and mother. I felt like I was losing myself and I needed a change. One morning, without saying a word to my husband, I decided to go to my first job interview in my life after taking my son Daniel to school. I had no formal education, but I saw an ad for a secretarial position and decided to give it a try. I was nervous, my hands were shaking as I walked into the building, but I was determined. To my surprise, I was offered a probationary period. I couldn't believe it. It felt like a small victory, a step toward reclaiming a part of myself that I had lost. As I was leaving the office, I heard someone call my name, Anna. Turning around, I saw a man about my age, tall, with a warm smile, wearing a jacket and a fancy tie. I recognized him immediately. It was James, my high school boyfriend. I couldn't believe it had been almost 10 years since I'd last seen him. We chatted for a while and exchanged contacts, promising to meet up soon. Meeting him brought back memories of those carefree days when everything seemed possible and responsibilities and expectations didn't weigh us down. I had almost forgotten about that meeting until I received a text from James on Saturday morning inviting me for a cup of coffee. I didn't tell my husband, Thomas, where I was going to avoid an argument. Instead, I told him that I had been urgently called into the office. He was already unhappy that I wanted to work, and this just upset him even more, but I brushed off his reaction and silently packed. I knew I needed this break, even if it was just for a few hours. Seeing James had refreshed me. We talked for hours over coffee and pastries. I hadn't had a chance to go out in years, and I enjoyed every moment of it, even found myself playfully tapping my foot on the table. It turned out I missed the person I used to be. James had a way of making me laugh, reminding me of dreams I'd once had. He listened intently as I spoke. His eyes never took his eyes off mine, and I felt seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. I realized how much I longed for genuine connection, someone who would listen to me without judgment. As we were about to part ways, James suggested we go to his house to look at old photos and reminisce. Honestly, I didn't want to rush to Thomas's house, so I agreed. James lived just a few blocks away from us. Walking into his apartment, I immediately felt strange, but at the same time calm. It was filled with bits and pieces of his life, books, photos, souvenirs from his travels. It was obvious he was living life to the fullest, and I couldn't help but feel a prick of envy. We were flipping through old photos, laughing at the memories, when James closed the album and set it aside. Then he sat down next to me and put his arm around my shoulders. For a moment, we looked like those teenagers in the photo. We were overcome with nostalgia and a sense of what could have been. He leaned in and kissed me. I tried to pull away, but he held me, and to my surprise, I realized I felt something too. The old feelings came flooding back. The warmth of his embrace, his familiar scent, it all felt so natural. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed being touched, being held without expectations or demands. James picked me up in his arms, and before I knew it, we were in his bedroom. Time seemed to rewind, and we were back in high school, furtively indulging in passion when no one was looking. The intensity of what was happening took me by surprise, but I didn't fight it. I let myself get lost in the moment, in the feeling of being appreciated. Later, lying next to him, I felt a mixture of emotions: guilt, excitement, sadness. I knew it couldn't last, but for that brief moment, I allowed myself to feel alive again. A few hours later, I returned home and found Thomas sitting sullenly in front of the television. He barely looked up when I walked in. I took a deep breath and headed to the kitchen to make dinner, feeling a mixture of sadness and longing that I couldn't quite untangle. The weight of what had happened was weighing on me, and I wondered if I would ever be able to find a balance between who I used to be and the life I'd chosen. Chopping vegetables, I thought of James, of laughter and warmth, and couldn't help but wonder if I could ever feel the same way again with Thomas. Life had become a series of routines, and I desperately wanted to break free, if only for a moment. That evening, as we sat silently at the dinner table, I glanced over at Thomas. He looked tired, his face wrinkled with frustration and exhaustion. I wanted to reach out to him to bridge the gap that had grown between us, but I didn't know how. Instead, we ate in silence, and unspoken words hung in the air. I knew things had to change, but I wasn't sure either of us were ready to take that step.